Hey guys, Igor here, and today we're taking a look at the iPad Pro. So I just wanted to make a quick video that kind of talks about the product and whether I like it or not and whether it's worth getting. So I'll start right off the bat saying that I'm very happy with the device and more importantly with the Apple Pencil. The only other thing that I can compare it to is my old like third gen iPad, which obviously doesn't have support for this. And going from the old thing to the new one, which is what I'm comparing it to, I can say that this is definitely an upgrade. It makes drawing a lot funner. It's faster. You know, you don't have to constantly switch between stroke size. You can adjust all of that by pressure sensitivity. Not only that, but shading is a lot quicker since you aren't restricted to having one opacity at a time. You're able to, again, adjust it with pressure sensitivity. So, what are some of the upsides to the iPad Pro? And obviously, you can look up all the stats online, but I'm just going to be talking about, in general, as an artist tool. Everybody who sees this thing for the first time, the first thing that they say is, "Wow, you know, it's huge. It's basically a laptop without the bottom half, and that's definitely a plus. Having this larger screen as opposed to even the new iPad Pro that came out with, I think, the 9-inch something screen. It's I would say that the larger size is still better because of things like multitasking. You can have the browser opened up next to some sort of image on the right side while simultaneously drawing, or you could have, let's say, Twitch stream open, or maybe even an app that does a specific thing, like the Skelly app that Prokov has. So I think that the larger screen is pretty much a must. The bigger, the better, and which also brings us to, how heavy is the device? If you look online, it probably will tell you these specifics, but I can tell you that comparing it to my old third gen iPad, that the smaller third gen iPad actually feels heavier. It's thinner by maybe not that much, but quite a bit. And I think that even though that the smaller iPad is heavier, the upside of it, as opposed to the con of the iPad Pro, which is what I'm going to talk about next, is that these new iPads don't feel as sturdy. And I think that has something to do with the force pressure sensitivity technology. Is it feels like if you have a really heavy hand and you tend to draw and push down really hard with the iPad, with the Apple Pencil, it feels like you're gonna either dent the screen or you're gonna do something to mess it up. The screen just feels a little bit cushiony or soft, if that makes sense. Now, the old iPad does not have that. I could pretty much stand on it if I wanted to, and it should be fine. So I would say that's one of the biggest cons. I have a constant fear of denting my screen because I tend to draw with a pretty heavy hand. Luckily, you can just go into Procreate or whatever app you use. If it supports tweaking of the pressure curve, you can adjust it so that the pressure curve, whenever you do end up using it, is really light. So that's nice. Now, one thing I did want to mention, and this is another pretty big con in my opinion, is that the charging port on the Apple Pencil, the way that you have to charge it, unless you have some sort of external source, is you have to stick it into the charging unit or the lightning port on the iPad itself. And as you can see, let me get this closer to you guys. It sits at this like very thin mark, like very thin piece of metal, sideways. So it feels like accidentally knocking, bumping into it. There you go. There goes your Apple Pencil and the $100 that you paid for it. So that's kind of scary. And I don't know how they're going to address this in the future. Maybe they're going to have like a little extending port so that the pencil sits, below or somehow above. I don't know, but I would say that this is something to look out for. If you're on the go, charging your pencil might be a hassle. At home, I can set it off to the side very carefully. Another thing is that if you look, the pencil is a little bit wider than the iPad. So even setting it on the desk feels like, you're slightly bending it. So I let the pencil dangle off the table so that it doesn't, you know, get messed up and in a direction where I'm not going to accidentally bump into it. So something to consider, guys. It's really annoying, but it is what it is. So hopefully that's a kink that they work out in the future. Now, what are some other cons that I could tell you? Well, one issue I had was I couldn't connect to Wi-Fi for some reason. The old iPad would do it, the new one kept preventing me from doing that. Turns out it wasn't an iPad issue at all. It was our router and modem. It was a couple years old, so we had to switch it over. We switched it out, and since then it works like a charm. So that issue's been taken care of. I did try to get a screen protector because some people said that and it wasn't even a film. It was tempered glass, but I ended up removing it because, from my experience, the even though it's advertised as not affecting any of the accuracy or however the iPad feels, from my experience, it makes a really big difference and very negatively so. What happens is whenever I'm drawing, I have my hand out. Here, I'll show you on the camera. So I'm drawing like this, and even if my palm is resting on the glass, which is fine, it didn't mess it up in any way. But as soon as I would want to zoom out, I would pick my hand up slightly, and I would use these fingers. And whenever I had them turned to the side a little too much, for some reason it was really buggy. It wouldn't zoom out, or it would zoom out, slightly, or really it felt glitchy or laggy. So I decided to get rid of the glass. I didn't even want to put up with it. It was really annoying. I'm all about, just quick, comfortable workflows. So I can pinch, zoom, draw, do that, touch some stuff. And you couldn't do that with the glass. It wasn't, my hands weren't oily or sticky or whatever. It just felt nasty. Now, and that's a common video up thing that people on YouTube would tell you. They're like, yeah, if the screen feels really glassy, you want to get some sort of film or glass that's going to add a little bit of texture and make it feel more like paper. But honestly, you're going to get used to it. It feels really good. I think the smoothness and stuff doesn't take away from your ability to draw or not draw. And lastly, before we wrap this up, what is this device for? Is it worth it? And should I get it? So if you have an older iPad and money is tight for you, I would say you can do all of the things that this thing can do, unless you're on an older iPad and you're limited to, features like not having motion blur or not having, what are some of the other things? You can have the perspective tool, but basically you're just restricted to the amounts of layers and the canvas size. But technically, you could still do everything that you can do on this thing on the older device. It's just not as convenient. So you're paying for convenience, a bigger screen, a little bit faster working stuff, but I didn't have any input lag on my old one, so that wasn't necessarily a selling point. So I would say if money is tight and you have an older iPad, no need. If you are a beginner, this is too big of an investment for a beginner because a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing on the iPad, it simulates drawing in real life, right? So why would you spend, upwards of $1,200 for an iPad Pro when, $200 will buy you enough paper for like 2 or 3 years, so you just sit there and you draw with a real pencil. You learn all of the things that you need to learn on there, and then taking it over to this thing in the future will make it a lot easier. Yeah, you'll say, but you can stream Netflix and stuff, which is awesome, and I do that. But at the same time, if your sole purpose of getting it is thinking that, I'm a beginner, but this awesome tool is going to make my not so awesome art really awesome, well, I'm sorry to say that's not necessarily true. So finally, do I recommend it? Yes, I do, to everyone who kind of knows what they're getting themselves into. I think the upside from this thing, as opposed to, let's say, a Wacom Cintiq, although I don't own one, so take my criticism with a pinch of salt, or my comparison, is that it is also in a tablet. It's an iPad. You can play games on it. You can watch your shows. You can browse the web. It's quick. It's a sleek package. I can hook it up to my MacBook and still do the whole mirroring thing, and there's no input lag. And I had a friend who has the Surface, and he says that there's no input lag on it, but you know, I feel like while that might be true, this was still the better option for me because of kind of already having not necessarily a bias towards Apple, but having their other products and being able to use programs that I'm familiar with, like Procreate, and being able to transfer them between my PC and tablet worked well for me. So it's something to consider. I would say definitely test out the Intuos if that is the route that you're thinking of going. But since I have no prior experience with it, I can't really give 100% honest input on that. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. There will be more videos on this channel with some subscriber drawings. There will be some tutorials, and yeah, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for all the likes and the follows and the comments. You guys are awesome, and hopefully I can continue to provide you with cool content. All right, have a good day.